On a busy corner of Fifth Avenue, a bank once dared to show off its money. Instead of hiding behind marble columns, Manufacturers Trust Company built a glass box so transparent that pedestrians could watch a 2-ton vault door swing shut at night. It opened in 1954, and nothing like it had ever been tried in American banking before. The address was 510 Fifth Avenue, at the southwest corner of West 43rd Street in Midtown Manhattan. The lot was modest, just 12,500 square feet, squeezed between towering neighbors like 500 Fifth Avenue and the Salmon Tower building. Surrounded on nearly every side by skyscrapers, the site received only a trickle of sunlight each day, a limitation the architects would have to design around. Before the glass box rose, this corner told a different story. An 8-story office building called the Ziegler Building had stood there since 1900, home to accountants, brokers, lawyers, and even tobacconist Alfred Dunhill. Next door sat 508 Fifth Avenue, a former rowhouse turned shop space for tenants like Huyler's Candy Store. Both would vanish to make way for something entirely new. In 1944, Manufacturers Trust Company commissioned a new headquarters branch for this site, hiring the firm Walker & Gillette to design it. But the plan stalled and was ultimately cancelled in 1948, leaving the bank without a building and the corner without direction. It would take another architect, and then another, before the project found its footing. In 1950, the firm Walker & Poor was brought on to revise the original proposal. Yet even this attempt didn't stick. Manufacturers Trust instead turned to Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, known as SOM, as consulting architect, a decision that would completely reshape the building's fate and, ultimately, the history of American bank design. Inside SOM, the project became the subject of an internal design competition, a contest to determine who would shape this high-profile commission. A young architect named Charles Evans Hughes III won it. But the man who would carry the vision forward was senior architect Gordon Bunshaft, alongside project coordinator William S. Brown, with Hughes's exact role afterward remaining unclear to this day. Bunshaft assembled a team to bring the design to life. Patricia W. Swan led the design effort alongside Bunshaft and Roy O. Allen, while Eleanor H. Lumiere took charge of the interiors. Sculptor Harry Bertoia was hired to create original artwork, ensuring that even the smallest details of the space would feel deliberate, modern, and entirely unlike a traditional bank. Horace C. Flanagan, president of Manufacturers Trust, wanted the design to convey a sense of stability and security, but through modern materials rather than the columns and marble banks traditionally relied on. A 1954 press release even declared that the building's design would advertise itself. Bunshaft compared its high-capacity layout to something closer to a retail store than a fortress. One invisible constraint shaped everything, a decades-old lease. Walter J. Salmon Sr., developer of the neighboring 500 Fifth Avenue, had once leased part of this very site and used its air rights to make his own skyscraper taller. In exchange, any future building here was capped at just 63 feet, forcing the architects to think horizontally instead of vertically. The result was a building just 5 stories and 74 feet tall, including its penthouse, with the lower 4 floors filling the entire lot. The penthouse itself, T-shaped, held mechanical equipment to the west and office space extending east, set back from the property line wherever it exceeded the original height cap that Salmon's old deal had imposed. But the true statement was the facade, a curtain wall built almost entirely of glass, totaling 13,000 square feet across the 5th Avenue and 43rd Street elevations. At a time when banks meant stone and shadow, this building let the street see straight through to its lobby, turning transparency itself into the boldest architectural statement a bank had ever made. The second-floor windows alone were record-setting, panes measuring roughly 9 feet by 22 feet, weighing 1,500 pounds each, the largest ever manufactured for a building at that time. The floors above and below used smaller 9 by 9 foot panes, but all of it was 4 inches thick, an engineering feat that pushed the limits of 1950s glassmaking. And then there was the vault. Designed by acclaimed industrial designer Henry Dreyfuss, the bank's vault door sat on the first story, fully visible from the sidewalk. For the first time, ordinary passersby could stand on Fifth Avenue and watch a bank's most guarded object, a sight so novel it turned mundane banking hours into unexpected street theater. Above it, the second story was recessed from the facade and topped with a luminous ceiling, a glowing surface that bathed the banking floor in even, futuristic light. Combined with Bertoya's artwork and Lumiere's interior design, the space felt less like a vault and more like a showroom, exactly the impression Bunshaft had intended when he compared it to a store. When it finally opened in 1954, the building was an instant sensation. It quickly became one of Manufacturers Trust's busiest branches, and remarkably, a tourist attraction in its own right. People came not to open accounts but simply to look. Architectural Forum praised it as a dynamic new kind of prestige design for large financial institutions, citing its sheer architectural lavishness. Its influence rippled outward for years. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, banks across the country began adopting similar glass-forward designs, chasing the openness and modern confidence that Manufacturers Trust had pioneered here first. What began as one bank's gamble on transparency reshaped an entire era of American financial architecture. Decades later, the building's significance was formally recognized. Its facade was landmarked by the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission in 1997, and its interior received the same protection in 2011. Ownership changed hands too. Chase Bank, successor to Manufacturers Trust, sold it in 2000. Vornado Realty Trust bought it in 2010, and the bank branch inside finally closed that same year. In 2012, SOM itself returned to renovate the building, converting the former bank into commercial space for a new generation of tenants. Rubin Brothers acquired the property in 2023, ensuring its story continues. From a cancelled 1944 blueprint to a landmark glass icon, this modest corner of Fifth Avenue proves that sometimes the boldest idea is simply letting people see inside.